Hey guys, it's the House of AC. I'm Alan Corey. Thanks for tuning in. Please follow, like, subscribe. All that stuff helps me. And you can find the House of AC on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. I'm building a platform there to teach you about real estate, financial freedom, and whatever else will make you more money. That's my goal. I get excited to make you guys wealthier. Which brings me to our guest today, someone I think you're going to be really excited to talk about. Please come prepared for your questions because I've got plenty of them, but I'm sure you guys listening along will have some as well. Our guest today is based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. His name's Erik Wright, and he has created a great business strictly through SEO. So if you don't know what SEO is, this is, let's go straight to the source and let's find out. Hey, Erik, thanks. Welcome to the House of AC.
Hey, thanks, Alan. I'm glad to be here, man.
So you're a real estate investor. Is this a full-time gig?
Just recently. Yeah, about 6 months ago, I actually stopped all my other side hustles and jobs and full-time real estate now.
That is the best feeling. It's awesome. And I remember when I made that switch, I guess I don't know. I'm always working in real estate capacity. I'm still a real estate agent, and I got a team of agents, but it doesn't feel like work. But like now that when I left I was in the computer world. When I left that world and I focused on real estate, it felt great.
It's really been freeing to be able to focus because this has always been the long-term goal, and now I'm actually here doing it, and it feels awesome to be able to actually say that.
Oh, congrats, man! Yeah. So I think a lot of people listening today have that goal. You know, how do I leave the 9 to 5? How do I become a full-time real estate investor? How much work does it take? Is it completely active? Can I be passive about it? A lot of questions around this, but and I want to get there. But what I found interesting about you and you being a guest of our show is that you find houses off market through SEO. Can you explain briefly what SEO is?
So SEO stands for search engine optimization. So basically what that means is when somebody searches, not specifically Google, but most people use Google, that when they search for certain keywords online, that I try to get my website to rank number one for the organic rankings for whatever that keyword is. So, I'm going after motivated sellers. So, for my specific market in Chattanooga, people see all the, the We Buy Houses signs on every street corner, right? Most people don't remember the phone number, but they'll go home and they'll Google We Buy Houses Chattanooga. So my website ranks number one for We Buy Houses Chattanooga. So I really appreciate all the other wholesalers out there advertising for me with their bandit signs out on the street corner so people can come search for me online.
Yeah, so it's basically finding, from what I understand, whether you're using Google or whatever browser, you enter in certain words. I want to sell my house. I want to buy a house, and then maybe in Chattanooga. Yeah, where you sort of sort on on those search results.
Correct.
Is it completely organic and passive, or do you pay for Facebook ads or Google ads and stuff like that too?
It's completely organic. I wouldn't call it passive, but it is organic. I don't have to pay for those leads because then, when you search on Google, there's usually like 2, 3, 4, whatever, like paid ads at the top, but it says ad next to it. And that's people doing PPC, the pay-per-click advertising on Google and that sort of thing. But they're paying, thousands of dollars a month to try to get those listings on there and to get people to click on their ad. Whereas most people or a lot of people like myself, I usually scroll past all the ads because I know that those are paid and I want to see who the organic top rankings are. And so all of those are quote unquote free leads that I'm not paying for necessarily, but definitely took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get ranked high enough to actually get those leads in.
I would imagine. And it's something that takes time, right? You can't just launch a website and in day one be number one. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So I started my company a little over right at 2 years ago. And I started working on my website and don't even think I got a lead for 6 to 8 months because you're building the website, you're working on, all of the behind the scenes SEO stuff. And I think I got my first lead 6 or 8 months in. But that lead ended up turning into a house that now I'm fixed up and refinanced and got all my money out plus 20 grand and 75% or 25% equity and basically got a house for free. So that in and of itself basically made it.
Yeah.
It was proof of concept.
Right,
It
right,
works.
right. So I guess the question I have, so I'm a realtor in Atlanta. I got a realtor team here. Who is calling and needs help selling their house right now? It's the hot sellers market. You could theoretically find an agent to trade bidding more and market for you on your behalf. You could maybe do a sale by owner if you're so inclined. What type of clients are searching for your website and reaching out to you to sell their home?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it kind of depends on how the market is, like you said, like in different types of markets. Honestly, in the past 6 to 8 months, especially, it's been a little more difficult, even with our SEO leads, to actually get deals, because even the people that are coming to us and the house is run down and they know that they can list it on the market and still get a good price for it. So it's been a little slower, but at the same time, we've gotten several good deals where it's just people who, hey, I can't sell this house to anybody who's going to get a typical mortgage because, the bathroom's gutted, the roof leaks, the AC doesn't work, whatever. So a typical bank won't give an owner occupant like a mortgage. They won't finance it. And so those type of people need a cash buyer. And a lot of times it's situations where either they're in forbearance, maybe their forbearance period's about to end and they don't want to go into foreclosure. Maybe it's an inherited house and they live out of state and they just don't want to have to mess with it. So we deal with a lot of inherited houses, people in some type of financial distress where they're just like don't want to lose their house, and so they want to sell and at least make a little bit because they're kind of on a time crunch. Sometimes people moving for work, they got a new job offer. They're like, hey, I got to be out of my house in 30 days. I don't have time to sit around and list it with a realtor, and they're willing to sell it for under market value just for that convenience of selling it quickly. So basically, it's anybody who has a more significant motivation to sell their house than just a typical homeowner who just wants to sell their house and buy a new one.
And then I would imagine there's an incentive on your side of things to buy this home. Do you get a deep discount? Do you get just the first look, or what's the sort of benefit for you as a real estate investor?
Yeah. So the benefit for me is that usually when people have already taken the time to search online and click through different options, and of course, if I number one, click through mine, they might click other couple of people's websites or whatever. And if they reach out to me, they've already vetted me. They've already seen my website. They know that I'm an investor. They know that I pay under market value. They know I'm either going to fix it up and flip it or keep it as a rental. They kind of already come in knowing all those things, knowing that they're not going to get, the fair market value plus 10% like everybody else is paying for on the market right now. And so they come to me, and typically I don't even really make offers to folks. I just try to listen to whatever their situation is, figure out what their motivation is, because I can buy houses in different ways depending upon what it is that what their situation is. Some people, creative financing sub 2 where I can actually give them more cash and walk away, but it makes more sense for me because I can get a house with the subject to where, I basically take over the payments on their existing mortgage, and their mortgage is at 2.8% or whatever, so it's like, it's worth it to me to give them extra cash up front because then I can take over this super low interest rate. And other people, they're just like, hey, I just want my mortgage paid off and 10 grand and I'll walk away, or whatever it is. So, okay.
So I just visibly saw all of our listeners' ears perk up on the subject too. So let's dig into that. So subject to, my understanding, and I think you captured it well, but it's worth repeating. I am buying your property, Erik, but I don't have enough money to buy your property. So I make an arrangement where I take over your mortgage payments. Is that arrangement just between me and you? Does the bank get involved? How does that look? Do you make any profit, or are you just sort of subleasing it to me?
So there's lots of different kind of ways that can work out. Kind of the most basic is that typically the mortgage stays in the original seller's name, but then we have a written agreement where I now agree to be responsible for making the mortgage payments, right? And so then in the deed, and there's different ways people do it. Some people transfer the deed, some people don't, some people use trusts. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways that you can, as far as what entity or name the deed is under. But essentially, the mortgage stays in place. We just make an agreement where I'm now responsible for paying the mortgage, and the house now belongs to me.
So you basically do a quitclaim deed to your LLC.
Correct.
And then you have a sidebar agreement that says, hey, don't not notifying anyone. I'm just going to take over your mortgage payments. And then what is that seller's right? Like if you just don't make mortgage payments.
So we actually do a good job in our written agreements with our sellers where we want them to feel very protected. So that way, if we don't make those mortgage payments, basically that they have the right to then come and take their house back from us.
Okay. Yeah.
And we do that because we want to make sure that our sellers feel very comfortable with that. So they know that, we're not in this to try to screw anybody over or be shady. Like we're trying to actually create a better solution than what they would get if we were just going to come in and pay all cash, where we wouldn't be able to give them as much money as if we could do the subject to agreement and then give them more cash up front and walk away. And sometimes we'll even do subject to, and we'll, instead of doing subject to and giving them 20,000 and walk away, we'll give them 80,000, but paid out over 10 years or whatever.
Right.
It just kind of depends on, again, that's the getting creative. Whatever their situation is, whatever makes the most sense for them, we can come in and do that.
No, I love this because a lot of times people say, hey, you got a house way below market value. You didn't use a real estate agent. You were very predatory. That's not how I look at it. I look at it as this guy has a unique problem and came to you to say, what creative solutions do you have to solve my unique problem? And you give them some options and they can say yes or no. Like it's you're not, what I like is you're not knocking on doors where like you see that the house is in disrepair, right? They are actively typing in something in a Google search and then finding you and reaching out to you. And that's a whole different ballgame. Which
is the reason why I chose SEO in the first place 2 years ago when I decided that I was going to go all in. I wanted to go full-time real estate. I did a ton of research, bandit signs and cold calling and texting and direct mail and all the different stuff. And SEO just seemed the most attractive to me because it's people who are finding me and coming to me rather than me. How many people are like, oh yeah, well, I got cussed out 5 times a day, cold calling and whatever. And, all this different kind of stuff. Whereas when people come to me and then I can kind of help figure out a solution after I listen to what their situation is and figure out what, you ask a lot of questions and you ask them what they want. And I feel like that's been the key because people are already motivated when they come to me. So my goal is to figure out what it is that they really need and want and try to go from there. And that's where, like I said before, I don't even really make offers that often. Typically what I do is I ask the person a lot of questions and figure out what they need. And then I'll even go into it and ask them like, okay, so after we can take care of X, Y, Z, whatever it was, they're like, oh, we need some cash front, but then we need 3 weeks to move, but we need the cash in order to move. And, whatever it is that they need, like, okay, I can do that. And I can take care of your mortgage and whatever. What are you looking to walk away with cash in hand, just your profit after we close this deal? And sometimes people will be like, honestly, on more than one occasion, I've had people go, you know what, as long as you pay off our mortgage, we'll just be happy. It's just been such a, pain to deal with this property and we live out of state and whatever. I had a family do that just a few months ago. They bought the house 20 years ago for $120,000. And I asked them what they owed on their mortgage. And they said $60 some odd thousand. I said, okay, so what are you looking to profit over what you owe on your mortgage? And they said, honestly, if you can just pay it off, we'll be happy. That's the best deal I've ever gotten in my life. And I didn't even make that offer. It was their number. I was giving them exactly what they asked. And they were ecstatic.
20 years ago. Like, what is it worth now? 300?
I got the house appraised. I'm actually in the process of renovating it. I got it appraised, and the as-is value of that house without any renovations was $195.
Yeah, wow.
And they sold it to me for $62 just because it was a problem and a headache for them, and that's what they said they wanted. And I said, okay.
So on your side, how do you acquiring these? Because you already mentioned that your sellers are people who can't get a traditional mortgage. So you can acquire this with a traditional mortgage. So how are you paying for this?
Yeah, so I use a variety of funding options, just the regular hard money lenders, fix and flip loans. I also have some private lenders that I work with as well. And I've also worked with some local banks. If it's a situation where maybe the people don't need to move out, like they don't need to sell really quickly and they're like, maybe a couple months out, then I can go to some of my local banks who have construction style rehab loans that are a little better terms than the hard money lenders that I use. But they require more paperwork and more due diligence up front and that sort of thing. So they can't close as fast. So it just depends on the deal and kind of what needs to happen.
So let's talk about hard money loans. Just audience listening here, hard money loans doesn't necessarily mean they're mafia gangster loan sharks. Like that's sort of a reputation a lot of people have. There's definitely hard money lenders that you can find pretty much in any real estate investing forum that you belong in or join. They're basically guys with money, and they understand real estate. They just don't have the deals. So they'll put their money in your deals in exchange for usually a short-term loan. And then gives you enough money to buy it, to renovate it. And then you've got to do a cash out refi within 1 year or so, like that. Can you kind of explain what sort of interest rates are you seeing on the hard money side right now, and sort of the fees and everything bundled up?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm seeing everything in the range from 8% to 14%, which is kind of a big range. But each of them kind of have their own niche, where some of them, it's a lower interest rate but higher points up front, or they have a lot stricter, like the lower the interest rate, typically a lot stricter the lending guidelines, where you have to have more cash reserves. It has to be a really good deal. Like your loan to value has to be I guess a better percentage for them. And then you got on the opposite end, you got people who will lend a little easier, but the interest rates are higher. So, you can get up into 12, 13, 14% there. So I typically stick in about 1.5 to 2 points and 10 to 11% with most of my hard money lenders. And which one I go with just kind of depends on the project and where it's at and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And so for those who don't know, points on a loan, that's basically fees you just pay at closing. So if it's 1 point, that means 1%. So if you get a $100,000 loan, 1% of that is $1,000. So you pay $1,000 in fees. So these hard money loans typically have 2 to 3 points per percent of that. It's just a upfront fee.
Correct.
And you might be scratching your head or saying, why would I pay 8 to 14%? But here's the thing. No one else is going to lend you money on this, right? You have a deal to buy a house for $130,000. They want to sell it to you for $60,000. It's got appraised as is for $195,000. You have this huge spread. You can't get money anywhere. You'd gladly pay those points and that high interest rate.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And if you've got time going with the bank with the rehab style or construction style loan, I did one of those and it was interest only at 2.9%. About a year ago. And so if I can do that, I would much rather do that. But the bank, now that I'm fully self-employed, it's a lot harder to qualify because they're going to want to see more income than I'm showing as a self-employed person. They're going to want to do a lot more documentation and inspectors and appraisals and all of that kind of stuff that I may not have time to do because the person needs to close in 3 weeks or whatever,
Right.
So,
right. So I talk about this quite often. It's all about the tools in your tool belt in terms of financing to take down any deals. I would imagine you quickly become you sort of suffer from success. Like what do you do when you have 20 deals, 30 deals, 40 deals, because your SEO engine is so good, pumping you so many leads, and you don't want to say no because you just see dollars. You see these little treasure chests that you're like, yes, but how do I acquire that?
That's a great question. I actually encountered that. I'm right in the middle of that right now. So finally starting to come out of it a little bit. But this 2022, I think 2021, we did 14 total deals last year. And that includes some wholesale deals and different stuff as well. This year, I think we're at 15 so far already this year. So we're hoping to double what we did last year. But I think I had 6 or 7 rehab projects all going on at the same time for this first part of the year. Paying, up to $8,000 or $9,000 a month, sometimes on my hard money loans, paying those interest only payments, having invoices from contractors coming in, but not having been reimbursed from my lender yet with a construction draw, which basically means that the lender will fund the rehab cost, but typically the contractor will invoice me. I've got to pay it and then get reimbursed from my lender. And so when you've got 5 or 6 invoices that come in from contractors, and then you haven't gotten your reimbursement back yet from your hard money lender, and I have to close on another house in 2 weeks that I need $40,000 for to put money into or whatever. I think at one point I got down to about $700 in my business account and was sweating bullets because, and it's not that we didn't have the money. It just, the money wasn't in the right place yet. It was still getting shuffled around, And so that definitely gets a little stressful. So when that came along and then I kept getting more leads in, it's like, I can't afford to try to take these in myself. So I'd either find partners who would then provide the money and we would just do like an equity split, or I would just wholesale them. If it's a good enough deal, there's still a way to make money on it. Maybe I wouldn't make as much if I flipped it or kept it as a rental or whatever. But you find a way to monetize it somehow without just passing on it because, like I said, the deals are coming in, but you don't have the money to do anything with them because you already got too many other projects going on. You still want to figure out a way to monetize those.
Now, so you said, you're an investor, obviously yourself. What's your sort of, I know you do BRRRRs and you said you do some long-term rentals. What's your portfolio and your projects?
So we got 13 units right now that we have fixed up and then we've held. And then we've got 4 flips currently that 2 of them are actually already under contract to sell. And then 2 of them the rehab should be finished in the next month or so. And then we'll get those listed as well.
Yeah, that'll definitely keep you busy, especially those flips. And any sort of run-ins with the supply chains or labor shortages or anything you're seeing right there in Chattanooga?
Yeah, it's just making everything take longer. It's nothing that's like incredibly significant. Like it's more just everything takes a little bit longer, which makes the whole project take a lot longer.
Right.
And I actually have a great contractor that I work with but because he's so good, he's popular. And I've actually, kind of sang his praises in kind of the real estate circles here, which has brought him even more business. But that means he's busy now. And so he's not as fast as he used to be, but I like him and I trust him and he does good work. And so I'm willing to, things that take a little longer because I'm getting good enough deals. He's doing good work. I trust him. He communicates well. If it takes an extra month or 2, you lose a couple $1,000 maybe, but it's worth it in the end to have those good relationships and keep everything rolling.
Yes, I have the same thing when my contractor's great, Patrick Vincent. He's been on the show before, but I just was always trying to keep him busy and get another flip, another rental, just so he wouldn't go work on another job. Because it's like, hey, I've got this one, but I've got this domino, like three lined up when you're done. So don't take any other jobs. But like every contractor, they're going to go to the most expensive job. So if I've got $1,000, quick flip, but another one pays them $100,000, I understand where I fall.
Exactly. So one of the things I actually did, and this is just because I like him so much. I again had gotten in a lead and it was a great deal, and I was like, I don't have the money to do this. Or at least not by myself. So I went to my contractor, and he's also an investor and flips houses himself and has rentals. And then he has his contracting business. And I told him, I was like, hey, I don't have the money to do this one by myself. Do you want to partner on it 50-50? And then, we'll both put in the same amount of money. You'll do the work at cost. We'll sell it. We'll split the profit. And so then he gets to make a lot more money on that house than if I just would have paid him, cost plus 20% or whatever to do the work. So that also, I think, fosters some loyalty there as well, where if I'm basically helping him make more money by partnering on flips with him, then he's also, my other projects he's doing tend to go higher on his priority list as well. Cause I had a contract.
Yeah. I had a contractor similar where I was like, I have the money to, and this was like a new construction. So it was a little bit longer and a little bit cost prohibitive for me to pull off purchasing and then also tearing down the house and then building a new one. And so, I partnered and I said, listen, I can buy the house and I'll make the monthly payments. You're the builder. You pay for all the renovation, kind of thing. And then at the end, we're going to sell it. You're going to get paid back everything for the renovation. I want to get paid back for everything I spent, and then we'll split the profit. Yeah. And what was great was because now, one, I've got him putting money into it. So he's motivated. He doesn't get paid till he sells it, just like I don't get paid till it's sold. And so it moves so much faster than any other project we've ever done. He's motivated to do it quickly and also motivated to do it well, because the better, quality.
Better he does it,
healthy
more money
growth.
he makes. Yeah.
100%. So I've had that relationship with a few contractors, and what always happens is I make them so successful that they don't need me anymore. They're like,
Then they
oh, I've
go
got my
and
own
start
money.
doing it by themselves.
Right. But
Yeah.
whatever. In the short term, it worked for me too, because I don't
Which
have that skill set.
luckily, that's where being the guy with the deals and who gets the leads coming in. Well, and that's what I figured. So when I decided to first get into all this, I was like, I want to do real estate full time. What does that mean? Like to become a real estate agent and then use that to buy houses. I mean, there's all different types of avenues, but I knew that, especially when I moved into Chattanooga, I mean, the market was really competitive even 3 years ago before everything got really crazy. And I knew that in order to be successful, I needed to be the guy with the deals, with the leads, and I could learn and partner and all the other parts of the business I could figure out. If I was the guy with the deals, I was going to have plenty of people willing to work with me.
Right. Yeah. The deals attract money. It attracts partners. It attracts contractors. So the golden nugget is the deal, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of investors, I think, get stuck where they don't feel comfortable asking for money, and it's the same mindset shift. You're not asking for money. You're offering an opportunity, and you're like, this will make money for me and for you, but I need a partner in it, and you'll manage it or whatever it is. If you don't have the money, many times I've found the deal and then I manage the deal, and whatever sort of job no one wants, I'll do, because I'll do everything but the money kind of thing. And then I've never changed a light bulb or a hammer like that, those sort of things, but I can find the contractors, and some deals I'll say, hey, you get a piece of the pie here when we're done, just to sort of incentivize and keep the deal on track. A varying success. Obviously, I've worked through some contractors to find ones I've really liked. Some took advantage of it. Some didn't really recognize the opportunity that I thought I'd set out in front of them. So, but it all starts with that good deal for sure.
For sure.
What were you doing prior to going full time into doing this?
Yeah, so but when my wife and I have been married about 6 years, and we were living in Louisiana at the time, and I was working for a homeless outreach nonprofit. So I was, working for a nonprofit, not making much money. Nonprofit world's not known for necessarily the high salaries. So I had started a side hustle. I would go to Goodwills and thrift stores and, whatever, and garage sales and find stuff to flip on eBay. So I started doing that just to make some extra cash. And then I'd also started a company where we helped set up fundraisers for youth sports teams and elementary schools and stuff, selling bed sheets. Super random. All right. I know it's really random. But I had started both of those businesses. And then when we moved to Chattanooga, I didn't have a job when we moved here. So I kind of dove all in on both of those businesses and scaled up to where I was buying like pallets of Amazon returns and Home Depot returns and stuff from warehouses, and then selling those things on eBay and Amazon and that kind of stuff. So I've basically been a hustler my whole life. So, you just got to hustle and do what you can to make the money. And so I was working full time doing that while I was working basically full time on my real estate business, trying to build it up, but not getting paid for the real estate business yet. And now it's finally all kind of paying off.
Yeah. So a couple of points. A previous guest, the Frugal Gay that I had here, he's on Twitter, very prolific on Twitter, but he had the similar background where he was buying pallets and going to flea markets. And
oh, really?
Them.
Oh, that's awesome.
The same mindset, sort of, flipping things, just like flipping houses.
That's exactly right. It's just flipping houses at a higher price point.
Yeah, right. And then, what I find interesting is obviously your background didn't sound very technical. So how did you sort of learn this SEO and how to be a search engine optimized website so that you have these organic leads coming to you?
Yeah. So you're right. I do not have a technical background at all. But what I do have is determination. Like if I set my mind that I'm going to learn something or do something, then I don't stop until I figure it out. Now, that being said, I also am all about asking people who are smarter than me and better than me to teach me those things. I don't have to figure it all on my own. So I actually hired a guy or paid for his program. His name's Gerald Norton. It's called SEO for Real Estate Investors, to basically teach me how to build a website, how to do all the SEO work, all of that kind of stuff. So I was in his program for, 6 to 8 months, really grinding. I mean, I probably worked 20 hours a week on it for 8 to 10 months, not getting paid yet, in addition to doing all my other, jobs and hustles and everything else. So, so I paid for that program, and then, basically just kind of buckled down, and it was not always fun. It's a grind sometimes. There's a ton of just monotonous, horrible, awful thing. I mean, it's just like, just very tedious at times. But once you build it, then the maintenance of the SEO doesn't take that much time and effort.
So is it like, I've been doing the real estate investing for 22 years. I was in tech before this, but when I first got started, the theory and the advice was create a blog, because you will have so many words. It's almost like a word vomit of blog after blog after blog. You just can't help, but someone will search for something that'll bring you to one of those blog page. Is that still the current advice for good SEO?
Some people do it that way. The way that Gerald does his program, I like, is it's very different from any other SEO program that I've read about or researched, is in that there are some technical things that you need to do as far as having certain keywords in the way you put them in your website and all that kind of stuff. But one of his big things is that you want to create your website so that people, when they get on your website, engage with it. Because in Google's algorithm changes every few months. Okay. So, 10 years ago, people would literally just take whatever keyword they were trying to rank for and write it 10,000 times at the very bottom of their website, over and over and over and over.
Right,
and then that would trick Google into ranking that. Okay.
Yeah.
But Google's getting smarter every, few months and changing its algorithm and recognizing when people are trying to cheat Google into ranking them. And then, but one of the things that Google tracks is engagement, customer engagement on your website. So if people are spending time on your website, they're clicking around, they're clicking on the different pages, they're filling out forms. If your website is engaging the customer, then Google sees that, and the time spent on your page, the amount of clicks, the engagement, all of that kind of stuff will then make your website rank higher. So you're doing your SEO stuff, but you're trying to please your customer more than you are Google, because the more they engage with your website, the more Google sees you as credible, and then will rank you higher.
Oh, that's the first I've heard that. I love that. And what are you specifically doing to create that engagement?
So a lot of that is just being personable. I've got some pictures on my website of like me and my family, and I'm like flipping my kids upside down, and just funny pictures and stuff. And we're trying to just say, hey, we're real people. Here's what we're doing. Here's some about our story. Here's who we are. And then even more specifics are like different types of distress situations people might be in. And honestly, just trying to offer legitimate value, where even if we don't buy their house, but they're like, hey, what do I do if I inherit a house and it has a mortgage on it? How does that process work to sell it or whatever? So we give them actually good information about what they can do, and they may contact us, they may not, but they're going to engage with that. And at least, the information we put on there is actually good information. We're not trying to just trick people onto our website.
And so is this reallifeinvestorcouple.com?
So Real Life Investor Couple is our blog site that my wife and I have written. So newhorizonhomebuyers.com is our company website.
Okay. And then, so this is funny. I just realized this. So first I went to realestateinvestor.com. Your logo, you've got a bald head. Your photos, you got a bald head. I'm looking at you this entire time. I thought the black of the back of your chair was
like super long hair.
Yeah, I thought it was like shoulder-length hair.
No, I'm wearing my hat today. I don't know if you can see it or not. I've got a big old bruise right here. I went kayaking this weekend and slammed my head on a rock. So,
ouch.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was like,
that is pretty funny, man. That's like a real mullet.
Yeah, totally. Louisiana guy to move to Tennessee fits in.
Yeah, man. I'm leaving here, gonna go wrestle some alligators.
So the back of your chair is not long hair. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're trying to expand your business. 'Cause it sounds like too that you're got all these leads and maybe opening it up to other cities and towns. Can you walk me through sort of the business expansion you're trying to do here with your SEO organic lead engine
sure.
that you're actually building?
Once I started ranking for Chattanooga and kind of the main cities around my area, Chattanooga is not a big town. It's like, 300,000 people or something. And so, I get a decent amount of leads, but not necessarily enough to really scale to the level that I wanted to. And so I started expanding my SEO efforts and made some pages on my website for different cities, kind of spreading out and out and out from Chattanooga. And then it started working. And so now I rank number one for, not just Chattanooga, but like Huntsville, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee. I'm working on getting in the top 3 for like Memphis and Kansas City and some other cities as well. And so at first I was going to try to create a virtual wholesaling business, and then realized real quickly that I hated that. I did not have the knowledge or the expertise or the teams in place or any of that to try to virtual wholesale in all these different cities. And so I ended up trying to find some different wholesalers in those cities who are already doing a decent amount of volume, and then just reached out to them and kind of interviewed several and told them what I was doing and the kind of leads I was getting in through my SEO stuff for the markets that they were already in, and ended up partnering with several of them, where now all of my leads for certain markets go directly to their acquisitions people or their CRM or whatever, and they do all the work and take them down, and then send me a percentage of the profit whenever they wholesale it or flip it or whatever they do with it. So that's what I'm trying to kind of expand right now.
Got it. So I'm on your website now, the new Horizon Home Buyers, and it's very engaging. Also, it's mostly just one page. Like, you don't have to have a lot of different pages now. Yeah, it's crystal clear. And, this is,
and so one of the hard parts about SEO stuff, though, is that Google does not like duplicate content. So if I'm trying to rank for Chattanooga, that's my homepage right there. But if I'm trying to rank for Nashville, I can't just copy and paste my homepage and then just change Chattanooga to Nashville everywhere, because Google sees that as a duplicate page and won't rank it. It basically sees it as not credible because it's just duplicate content. Yeah. So every single city that I'm trying to rank for, I have to do, at least 50 to 60% unique content so I can use the same kind of template, but you got to use a lot of new content. And so that's what's so time consuming about trying to expand all these new markets, is I can't just copy and paste and change the city name. You've got to write all new content for each page.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
so it's very labor intensive.
Yeah, it's something I would not have thought about, but it makes sense at the same time. So is your blog here that I've got here, Real Life Investor Couple, what is this, a lead generation tool or not?
So really, we started that was part of the SEO program, was if you can create a blog that actually generates enough traffic that Google again starts seeing that blog is credible as well, then you can start linking that blog to your company page. Like, so I would link something about New Horizon Home Buyers on my Real Life Investor Couple. A big part of SEO stuff is just you build credibility through backlinks, which is basically where other really credible websites link to your website. So there's lots of different ways you can do that. This was one of them. It's a little more difficult to create a blog that actually generates enough traffic that when you link to your website, that Google sees that as a really credible backlink.
Right.
And really, we just did that almost as just like just trying to kind of document some of our beginning journeys of our real estate investing career. I think my wife has an article on there that's called "Help, I Married a Real Estate Investor."
That's what I'm looking at right now. So
okay, yeah.
Ask you about that, because a lot of times the partnership, the wife is not on board, or the husband's not on board, or whoever. The one person's really into real estate investing. It's usually the dreamer, and then the more practical person who wants to be very safe is anti-real estate, and it makes them very uncomfortable. How did you get your wife to kind of go along with this plan of going all in on real estate?
Yeah, so it's kind of a process. When we started dating, I actually was house hacking. I had a duplex and I lived on one side and rented out the other. And then when we got married, or actually we were engaged, she was wanting to look for a house to buy. And so we were looking for a house, and there's this 1930s house that had been renovated, and it was beautiful and cool and old. But I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. It's an old house, and it's kind of in a neighborhood that is supposedly up and coming, but is still kind of not there yet. And but it had a garage apartment. And so I was like, okay, I can get on board with this. So the garage apartment paid for half our mortgage for the first 3 years of our marriage. And so just that alone, I think kind of helped ease my wife. And we kept the duplex, and I bought one more single family home while we were there that I renovated, and we started renting out. And so just kind of through those slowly acquiring some rentals and that sort of thing, my wife got to see the power of real estate, and now she's all in. I mean, she's seen what it can do. And, she didn't necessarily know all the terminology and all of the stuff, but she could see basically how it worked and how it can be really powerful as far as helping us build wealth and that sort of thing.
I had the same sort of approach with my wife, newly married, trying to convince her that we're going to take this HELOC off her loan to buy another property. And I had to put it in a spreadsheet, which I was doing anyway. But then I think I came with like 4 options, 4 outs. So it's like, hey, we're going to buy this property and then rent it out. And this is what the numbers look like, and it's going to be profitable. But if that fails, then we can sell it. And if we sell it after, renovating it, fixing it up, this is probably what we'll sell it for. Worst scenario, we're going to sell it here, realtor fees here. We're still profiting. If that doesn't work, it's also a house that we can live in, and we can sell the house that we're living in for this amount of money. And if that doesn't work, then like I just, now it would, Airbnb, you could do Airbnb. And then if that doesn't work, then, it could be my office, and then I don't have to rent that office space. Like I just had there's so many things that could go wrong, and there's plan B. If that goes wrong, plan C. If that goes wrong, plan D. And then she felt really comfortable. Well, I hesitate to say that. She felt more comfortable enough to say, yes, I'll try it. And then it worked out exactly like I said it was, like plan A. This is how much I think it's going to make. This is what's going to happen. And it just happened to be the perfect scenario. And we did really well on it. And so she's like, the next one, she didn't ask as many questions, but I still had to do the same exercise. And that also worked really well. Third one, very few questions. Fourth one, she's just like, you can stop bringing me questions. You know what you're doing. Go do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just a progression. And I feel like that's a mistake that some people make, is that like, if you're the one who you've been listening to the podcast for 5 years and you've been all in the, like, real estate mindset and the books and the whatever, it's like even the language you use is so different from somebody who's not done any of that. And so it can be easy to get frustrated with the other person, but you also understand that they don't have any of your context or understanding of the real estate and the investing world. And so you kind of have to, meet them where they're at and ease into it and let them ask questions and what if this happens, what's the plan for, XYZ and it's just allowing the other person's space to ask those questions and hopefully, feel better about and more comfortable about it.
Yep. And this is sort of an interesting sort of arc. So you started as helping the homeless outreach, and now you're in the business of providing homes to people as well.
Yeah. It's been really cool. And I've, I'm still growing the business and just still trying to make it where we're, making a living for our family. But that's something I'm still very passionate about, and something that, even with any of the houses that we flip or wholesale or any of that stuff, we donate a percentage of everything that we make to some of the organizations that we're real passionate about helping folks in homelessness and that kind of stuff. So we're excited to continue growing, to continue being able to support those causes. But then also in the future, I've got a lot of friends who are really in the affordable housing spaces and some different stuff like that I'm interested in getting into eventually.
Yeah. Well, so affordable housing as an investor. So you have not done that yet?
Not yet. No.
Yeah. I'm very, like, a lot of times people come to me and say, hey, Alan, I want to buy a property and I don't want to do Section 8 or affordable housing. And whatever, everyone has their niche and it doesn't matter. But to me, I like affordable housing for many reasons. One, you're obviously providing a great service for folks who need a home. But two, your tenant is the government, which basically means, pandemic, economy crashes, nuclear war, the government's still going to be paying your rent for you, on the tenant's behalf. So it's very safe. We have a housing shortage here in Atlanta. So the Atlanta Housing Authority, which is the Section 8 affordable housing program within the city limits of Atlanta, they're willing to pay over market rent to get their tenants in your place. So if someone would rent, one bedroom, $1,000, they may pay $1,250 or $1,300 for it because there's such this huge demand.
Yeah.
Then once that tenant moves in, they are what I find the best tenants ever, because they've got someone paying their rent. And if they break that lease, if they move in their family members, they get pets and dogs and do all these things that tenants love to do without really being allowed to do it. If they do that, they can be kicked out of the whole Section 8 program or affordable housing program and never allowed to get back in. Who's going to do that? If someone's got someone, paying for the rent, who's going to do that? Who's going to be a terrible tenant? So all these things adding up, I love it. And I always tell new investors not to shy away from it.
That's great. I love it.
So what advice do you have for maybe some of those newbies who are sitting on the couch and they've got analysis paralysis or first timer freeze and they just don't even know what to do next?
I would say take time to figure out what your competitive advantage is. And what I mean by that, I'm in the SEO space now. So SEO is my competitive advantage. But before I started it, I didn't know anything about SEO, but my competitive advantage at that point in time was flexibility of my schedule. I was self-employed, flipping stuff from pallets and whatever and all that kind of stuff, but I could create my own schedule, work on whatever I wanted to work on. So I had the time freedom to be able to hustle and figure out what I wanted to do. So then I did the research to do that. Somebody else may have a great high paying W-2 job. Well, okay. So that's your competitive advantage, is that you make great money. I was not making great money. I was making enough to live on, but I had the time freedom. And so, whatever your season of life, wherever you're at, whatever it is you're doing, is to figure out what your competitive advantage is and figure out, because there's so many different kind of avenues to get involved in real estate. Are you the guy, or are you finding the deals? Are you the one who can do the work to fix up the house? Because I know guys who they're the ones who can do the work themselves, or they're a contractor, so they don't have to get deals as deep as I do, because they can do the work themselves for a lot cheaper and still make a decent profit on these houses, or BRRRR them or do whatever. Whereas because I've got to pay contractors to do all this, I'm paying a premium for that because I don't have that expertise, but I can find the deals, And so, just to figure out what it is if you're just a great networker and you're just good with people and you're good with, connecting all the different people, the people who have the money and the people who have the deals and the whatever, and then you can get in the middle and maybe get a piece of that by connecting all the people, then that's your superpower. Figure out what it is that's your competitive advantage, and then try to niche into that and figure out what that is.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. For me, I felt like I enjoyed writing, I thought it was my competitive advantage. And so I started writing books, and then that opened up a lot of doors. And then I know someone who's a really good graphic designer, and they make cool cartoons on and post them on Instagram and Twitter about real estate, and they get a big following. And it's things I could never do because I can't draw. And it's use whatever skill set you have, or even hire out if to leverage different vehicles to kind of find these deals and grow your real estate investing career. Does your SEO carry over to social media at all?
What do you mean?
Like, are you doing certain things on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter to
Gotcha.
these leads, or is it just
social media is a huge weakness of mine. That's something that probably would help my SEO efforts. I post a little bit on social media on our Real Life Investor Couple and our New Horizon Homebuyers, like Instagram, Facebook, and stuff. I'm just not good. I don't really do social media in my own personal life either.
Right.
So it's not something I'm naturally inclined to do. It's something that I know that people who do it well can be very profitable and beneficial. It's honestly kind of a weakness of mine.
Well, I'll give you a shout out. I just followed you at REI Couple IRL. So Real Estate Investor Couple
Twitter.
On Twitter.
Yeah.
I followed you from the House of AC. Also, our mortgage sponsor is at Jasmine Mortgage Team as well. And you've got what's your Instagram handle as well?
So it's just Real Life Investor Couple on Instagram.
Okay. You've just been followed by the House of AC as well on there.
So Twitter is probably my weakest. Instagram and Facebook, we were on a little bit here and there. I honestly, I never adopted Twitter when it came out, and so I'm still kind of don't know what I'm doing when it comes to Twitter.
Got it. Well, we all learn somewhere. I'm learning as well. And it's funny, like I actually enjoy doing TikTok, the House of AC on TikTok.
Yeah.
I've got the fewest followers, but I probably do the most updates there. But my Instagram's going crazy.
Yeah.
And so I've been repurposing some of my TikToks onto Instagram.
Okay.
But Twitter is, I have a good following there, but it's a different, because I look at it as Twitter's more of a magazine. Like you've got to write,
Yeah.
right? It's your words, which should be my natural inclination. But I think I just overthink it. But TikTok, I'm terrible at this, but I'm prolific at it. It's working, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and there is a huge benefit to SEO stuff having strong social media, because all of that stuff is connected. Like, and I'm sure it's probably scary if we could actually see all of the data that Google has on each of us and our businesses and whatever and all that kind of stuff. But like all of the different, my real life investor couple and new horizon home buyers and all the social media and the website, whatever, Google sees all of that. So like if you're getting a ton of interaction on your social media pages, that's going to help your website rank higher, because you're just, the more engagement you get across all the different platforms, then the more credible that Google's going to see you.
Yeah, we all hate the word influencer, but the bigger of influencer you are, the better for business, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Erik, thanks for coming on the House of AC. I appreciate it. Your websites are once again,
it's reallifeinvestorcouple.com and newhorizonhomebuyers.com.
Thank you for sharing your stories on SEO research. Best of luck to you. Can't wait to have you back and hear about all these stories and all these off-market properties. And congrats for going full-time investor.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate it.